Hi everybody, this is Linda Israel and I'm going to work on a winter scene. So I'm starting with some rubber stamps, use some distressed ink and some paint today. I'm going to start with a blank sheet of paper. This is just regular cardstock. Bear with me as I adjust my screen. Alright. Prior to this video, I went ahead and stamped the snowman onto regular text weight paper and cut him out. I've used this before, so it's a mask. And I took some two-way glue and I made a stripe down the back side. You can kind of see it there. So it's a little bit sticky, much like a post-it note. I'll set that aside for a moment. And then I have my jet black Stays On ink. I always like to put a little bit of ink on it before I stamp because I find that the Stays On ink does dry out. If you didn't know, put the tray that goes with your Stays On ink, glue it to the inside lid, and that way when you close up your stamp pad, it protects that and keeps it moist. And even though I do that, I always try to re-ink. So I'm going to take the ink pad to the stamp and ink it up. I'm patting it up and down. I think that's got enough ink for now. And I've decided that I want this snowman just a little bit over here to the right side of my paper. And I'm just pressing down firmly. I'm not rocking the stamp because you don't want it to blur the image. Alright, that's a good impression right there. I'm going to set this stamp aside and get it out of my way. I've got this stamped and now I've got the mask. So I'm going to put that over the top of it. And what I like to do is move it down just a slight amount so you can kind of see the outline of the image below. This kind of helps so that you don't have so much of a shadow around the image for the next steps that I'm going to do. And the next steps that I'm going to do, I'm going to lay some color down onto this paper. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a brayer and an ink pad. I've got a tumbled glass distressed ink pad. I'm going to take my brayer and I'm going to ink up just the left side of this brayer. And I've got my craft sheet over here to the side, and I'm going to roll that on that craft sheet. I'm going to do this a couple of times. And what I'm doing is I'm laying a light color of ink on my craft sheet so that I can use this for direct to paper. I've taken a piece of scrap paper and I cut it into a wavy like background. And I'm going to set that down onto my page, and I'm going to pick up the ink and then I'm going to roll it across my page, and I'm going to get rid of the piece of hair. And as you can probably see, it leaves a light area across here of color. And I was using tumbled glass. I'm going to turn this around so that I can get a darker color. Still have a stray hair. So what happens when you have long hair or animals. Alright, so I'm going to put this back down across the bottom of the page. I'm going to pick up a darker colored faded jeans. I'm going to do the same process. Ink up the side of the stamp, roll it onto my craft sheet a couple of times to spread out that ink, make it a softer color. Just my mask. And I find that if you have anything under your paper underneath, it will make a mark when you're brayering. So you want to make sure that your area is nice and clean when you're doing this. So I'm just going in and adding a little bit of color. So now we have an even darker to the bottom. I'm going to do this a few more times so you can watch me as I go. I want to have a sun in my artwork, so I've punched out a circle. I've put some more of that two-way glue on the back, and I'm just going to put it up here at the top. So I have a sun. That way, when I'm doing the top portion of my scene, it'll have a sun. Alright. A couple more of these in the background. Right, I think I've got sufficient amount of color put on the background here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tree stamp. I'm going to ink it up and I'm going to stamp it 2 times over here by my Santa, or my snowman. The reason why I'm doing that is I've decided I want to have a tree, but I want to have it set up to where it's bigger than my snowman, and this tree really isn't bigger. And I just realized that I was stamping or putting ink, black jet black, on my stamp, and I wanted to use a green instead. So I'm just cleaning it off, getting my forest green stamp pad by StazOn. Again, I like to re-ink real quick like. I'm going to take my stamp pad and now I'm going to stamp. So we're going to stamp this over here. And I'm going to stamp it one more time. Alright, you'll see that that caused my tree to come up just a little bit taller than my snowman. And I did that just so that I could have a foundation of a tree. I didn't really care so much that the tree didn't come out completely stamped. I could have spent more time laying the ink down and being more precise, but I decided I just want to have an outline, because what I'm going to do is take some craft paint in different colors of green, and I'm going to paint this tree in. So I'm just going to use a piece of plastic here because I couldn't find my art palette that I want to use. And sometimes you just use what's by your hand and that will suffice. So I'm just squeezing out a couple of drops of paint here. I think my one color doesn't want to come out. Ah, there it goes. I'm going to wet my brush. I've got a baby wipe here. And I'm just going to kind of fill this in with some color. Now you can see that the tree is transforming and becoming more prominent. I think that's good for the painting of that tree. I have another stamp of a tree that I want to put over here so that it looks like it's in the background. I'm going to get my forest green. Since I already re-inked it a moment ago, I'm going to just stamp up my stamp. I think I want it right about here. I'm going to do the same thing with it by putting a little bit of color. Alright, I'm going to let that dry a moment. While that's drying, I'm going to lift up my sun, and as you can see, it's got a lighter space here. I've got this little stamp of clouds. I'm going to stamp it across my page. Using the distressed tumbling glass again. That might be a little too much, but I don't care. I just want to have some fun with it. Alright, the next thing I want to do is I want to stamp a little bit of grass. So I've got this little grass stamp. So I'm going to stamp it in the green as well. I think this is about dry on this tree. And I want to stamp it again with black over the top. So I am just re-inking my little tree stamp with my black stays on. And I'm going to line this up as best I can and stamp on top. So now you can see the tree with color. Alright, now I'm going to get one of my colored Prisma pencils here. Let's try to find a lighter color. I'm going to add some green. Alright. This is almost dry, so I'm going to use my heat tool to dry this really quick. I'm not going to really get it close, so bear with me a moment. I have this little sprig looking stamp, so I want to go over the top of this just a little bit so I can get some of that sprig. I'm using the black stays on again, so I'm just going to go in here and basically adding some of that texture back. I am not inking up this part of the stamp, the little stem, mainly just the prong. It gives me a little bit of that dimension. I'm going to take one of my lighter colored pencils and kind of make some light color here and there. Alright, I need to stamp the hat onto some paper so that I can give him a hat. I'm going to do that with using some embossing ink. I keep my embossing powder in some little containers so that it's easier to emboss with it. I'm just going to use an Versamark, very well used, very well loved ink pad. Since I'm putting a dark color over, it doesn't matter what this ink looks like underneath. If I were trying to do something that I wanted to be clear, then I'd make sure I use my good clean one. So you can see where the powder has stuck. I'm going to get out my heat tool again and emboss this. Alright, I'm going to take a pair of scissors and cut this out. Alrighty, I'm going to take my ink pad and go around the cut edge. And this one is hard to get to, so I'm going to trim it some more. There we go. Alright. Save him for a moment. Alright, there's my white snowman. Now it's time to give him an arm and face. Alright, I got my black stays on. I'm going to get his little face here. See, little face. I guess he's supposed to be a happy snowman. Alright, we're going to get in here close. And there we go. There's his face. Alright, here is his little nose. Okay. Well, it's not maybe in the center of his face, but you know what? Snowmans aren't perfect because they're made by a human. And we are not perfect. But that's okay. Alright, now that I've got my snowman built. I need to color in his arm and his nose. I got some orange for his carrot for a nose. Seems like every time I go to find a color pencil, I can't find the one I want. I think I need to rearrange these again. Let's see what color we got here. Well, why not? We'll use this one. Makes it stand out. All right. I'm going to get a slight gray just so I can go around him, add some dimension. He needs a pretty red scarf, so let's use some red paint. I'm going to get my paintbrush wet again. I'm just going to use the inside lid. And I should have got a different paintbrush, but sometimes I just grab what's on my table. I got one layer of paint down. I don't know why I do this. Why do we wave over stuff to dry it when it doesn't do anything? We do that with hot food as well. We'll sit there and fan the hot food. It doesn't do any good. I don't know why we do that. It seems silly. Alright, I'm getting a sharper pointed. I think I've got splatters of paint all over my design. Oh well. Here's my little hat. We'll put it kind of low on his eyeballs. We'll get some glue here. Eileen's tacky glue. One of my favorites because I can get a big bottle of it. I store mine upside down. I'm going to spread this glue out with my finger and then stick this down. I'll hold it down for a moment so it'll stay flat. Sometimes I use a stamp. I want some little snowflakes, so I've got this little bitty snowflake stamp. Let me get it where you can see it. Okay. I'm just gonna stamp it all over. Okay. Now I want to put some glitter on the page. I'm going to do that by putting some glitter glue down and then sprinkling it with some, let's see what I've got here. This is just some Stampin' Up! Dazzling Diamonds. So I've got some tulip glitter glue. I'm going to go around a few things on my page, like the clouds. I think I've got quite a bit on here. Alright. So I'm just sprinkling the glitter over. Alright, we're going to let that set for a moment and then we'll come back and tap it all off. Alright. I've got one of these little tidy trays. It's got a little space so you can put your glitter back in the container. I'm going to dump it back on here again. think I need to put some kind of saying. I think I can stamp this on a piece of paper and it'll look like he's holding a sign under here maybe. So let's get my paper cutter out. And we will cut a piece of paper. This is a stampability stamp, beginning of the season. I'm going to make this fit inside of a journal I'm working in. So I'm going to trim it down just a little bit. Trim a smidge off of this side. Gotta sign your work. Alright, so there's my little snowman page. Thanks for watching.